Hi, I'm Dr. Padilla. I'm a professor in computer science and psychology, and I've been a faculty member for over 5 years. I've been doing a few videos on professional development in academia, and there's one topic that I get asked about a great deal, and that is how to deal with rejection in academia. So I got my tea out and I wanted to give you some thoughts, some candid advice on how I deal with rejection, and some strategies that I've heard from my colleagues as well for how to deal with rejection in academia. And I'll just start by saying that it is not easy. Rejection always feels bad, but there's some things you can do to protect yourself a little bit from that rejection and to make sure that you have a sustainable career so you can continue to do amazing, brilliant work for many, many years to come without being stifled by the negative feelings associated with rejection. All right, so the first thing I want to say is that everyone deals with rejection. Everyone gets rejected. If you are submitting work, you are getting rejected. And I don't care how famous you are or, how many citations or publications that you have, everyone gets rejected. So much so that I have this list here that my husband and I started a few years ago that we call the fridge failures. That's what you'll see at the top, fridge failures. And I'm only going to show this briefly. I don't want you to see all my failures. But what we did is we put a list together on our fridge that is always there. And every time we fail in some major way, we write it on the fridge. And our goal was once we get to 30 down here at the bottom, we would take a major trip, right? And we've certainly made it to 30 and actually adds up pretty quickly. And we're going to take a large trip and celebrate our failures, okay? So that's to say that everyone is failing all of the time. And you name it, I have had that particular fail. I've had papers rejected. I've had papers desk rejected. I've had grants rejected. I've had student applicants turn down offers, on and on and on and on. Every form of rejection. But you don't see that rejection when you're looking at your colleagues. You might see someone who appears to be so incredibly successful. They have all of the best presence online. It seems like they're getting all the awards. They are getting rejected as well. So you are not alone. In fact, you're in very good company. Rejection isn't unique to you. I will say, it doesn't make it sting any less. Doesn't matter how many acceptances you get, every single rejection is still hard. Even just a negative comment, a single negative comment, we tend to focus on that. Of course, we know that from psychology that we have a tendency to fixate on the negative feedback and ignore a wide amount of evidence showing any type of positive feedback or positive things that are happening. It's actually just kind of easy for us to retrieve from long-term memory negative associations because it gives us an emotional response, right? So there's a physiological reason why it's actually easy for us to remember these negative feelings associated with rejection. But it is something that you have to learn to deal with in academia because that is part of the game, and it truly is. And if rejection is just something you really, really dislike that you can't deal with, maybe academia isn't the best place for you because it is inherent to the process. We get rejected all of the time. That brings me to my next topic, which is if you're not getting rejected, you're not submitting enough. We often have to submit many, many things, and a metric of how well you're doing in terms of submitting that work is how many rejections you get. Now, when I was first applying for grants, you would see the number of grants that I submitted, and just a small portion of those would be funded. And that is how the funding and acceptance rates happen for everything, right? We apply to journals that have a 10% acceptance rate. That means if you submit 10 papers there, one of them will be accepted. That feels crazy, like your paper should be the one that got it. But that's just not how the numbers work, okay? So if you're getting lower acceptances than the number that is indicated in the acceptance rate shows, maybe there's something to be done in terms of, reevaluating things. But often the proportion of rejections that we get are fully standard and in line with the expectations of what we're submitting to. So you essentially, if you want to get an acceptance, you have to submit a number of things to kind of make it to that probability level. If you're submitting to a journal that has a 20% acceptance rate, you have to probably submit, the number of publications to make it to that one that will be accepted. So just know that going in, that rejections are part of the process. Now, of course, when you're submitting all of these things and you're getting all of these rejections over and over and over again, it feels awful. Truly, truly awful. So one way that I have found has helped me is to not celebrate when I get something accepted, but celebrate when I submit something. And that changes the framing where I am happy and I am with my students, we celebrate things when it goes in. And they often think that that's a weird process because they'll say, it hasn't been accepted yet. I'm like, that's not the point. We're celebrating the submissions because that's the part that we can have control over how much we submit and where we submit to. So let's celebrate that process. If it's accepted or not, that is an independent thing, but we need to be proud of ourselves for the work that we have done and celebrate in a community type way for those submissions. And that has helped me a little bit get around the negative feeling of a rejection, is making sure that we're being proud of ourselves for the submissions, not necessarily the acceptances. Okay, another strategy that works for me to some degree, but I've heard from a lot of people that it works well for them, is waiting to read the feedback. So you'll get the rejection and it stings. You'll see that email that says, sorry, you've been rejected. And I know a lot of people who will then put it aside for 3 or 4 days, let their emotions recover, get in a better headspace where they can read those feedback and to internalize them in a way that it doesn't feel like it's about them per se. Because what can really happen is you get a rejection where you submitted a paper or brand and it's rejected and you feel rejected as a person. The truth is that your work is not you. You are a smart, strong, independent person with so much value. And what you submitted is just an artifact of some work that you did. If it gets rejected, it doesn't mean you got rejected. It doesn't mean you are not worthy. It means that that particular thing, that artifact of some work that you did, people didn't understand it. It wasn't received like you thought it would be. Maybe there were even some flaws in it. Even if there are flaws or mistakes, that doesn't mean you are flawed or there's something wrong with you in some capacity. Mistakes are real and happen all of the time. And trying to separate yourself from your work is really important to make sure that you can be in this for the long haul. So what people like to do is put aside the reviews for a few days so they're in a better headspace where they're not so emotionally charged from that immediate painful feeling of the rejection, and they can separate themselves from that work and read the reviews as if it's just about the work and it's not necessarily about who they are as a researcher. And the last thing I want to say is that some of the best work has gotten rejected many times. I hear so many stories where a paper got rejected 3, 4 times, and the 4th time it was submitted, it won a Best Paper award, right? So there's so many reasons why things might be rejected. It could just be the people reviewing it at that point just didn't get it. Maybe they didn't read it thoroughly. Maybe it wasn't the right venue for that work. There's so much about a rejection that has nothing to do with the quality of that work. So keep that in mind, that some of the best work out there has been rejected over and over and over again, and don't take it to heart. What you want to do is make sure that everything you submit, you are proud of, you feel is your best work. If you're submitting your best work every time, that you are very proud of what you have done, that's all that matters. And eventually it will find its home, it will find its place. And you don't necessarily need to freak out if people don't quite understand the work at this time. Maybe it's too soon for them, or maybe the field's not ready for it. In any case, if you are proud of what you've submitted, that is the most important part. And I want to close with saying it is hard. There's no way to sugarcoat it. Rejection is always hard. But the most successful people, in spite of those negative feelings, keep submitting. Trying to make it to 30 rejections so you can go on a vacation. Try to persevere through that. I think it can be so incredibly hard. So if you're dealing with the pain and issue of rejection, I would encourage you to reach out to your other colleagues and talk about it with them. They are probably feeling the same thing. I feel it all of the time. Voicing those feelings could really help you, really start to help you feel like you're releasing some of those built up emotion, and talking with other people can help you connect with others who are feeling the same thing. Hopefully this video has given you a place to think about these ideas, recognize that you're certainly not alone. Feel free to comment down below if you've ever felt these types of things. I know many people have felt it as well, and I feel it almost on a weekly basis, the feeling of rejection. But I've stayed in there. I've stuck through it. I think you can too. Remember, you're strong and your work is good. Just believe in yourself and you can get through these rejections. Take care.